So are you recording?
Just hit record, yeah.
Okay. Hello and welcome to the very first public backlog grooming meeting for Operator SDK. I guess technically this is the meeting for v1.2.0. This is being recorded, so don't say anything you don't want to be on the internet forever. So this is the very first meeting, so we're kind of playing catch up. So we're going to go over the stuff in the 1.1 milestone first. Hopefully in the future this step should have already happened, but we're kind of playing catch up because this is the first one. Oh man, it's super helpful that this thing is in the way. Can I move this bar somewhere else? Oh, there we go. Okay. So just going to go down the list and I guess figure out where to move the stuff if it's going to get finished by the time we cut 1.1 or whether we need to move it into 1.2. So the first thing, multiple custom resource versions and watches YAML result in duplicate Ansible reconciliations. Fabian's not here, right?
Yeah. So I would just say right off the bat that anything with a triage label on it probably shouldn't be in a milestone. So either this issue needs to get, and other issues with triage labels need to get updated such that there are feature requests, bugs, documentation, what have you, or they need to be kicked out of a milestone and not put in there. Does that sound reasonable? Because it's like this thing hasn't been triaged, it's unresolved.
So remind me again what the triage label actually means. Does that mean we're supposed to go over this on the Monday meeting?
It just means that it's in triage. So async, it doesn't really matter what milestone it is in. It probably should be in backlog, but it should be getting actively triaged by members of the community. And I put this into milestones before I actually thought, well, we came up with this grooming concept. But I think that makes sense to me now that we don't have any triage issues in a milestone.
Except backlog. So I guess we should just go ahead and put this in backlog and keep going.
Yeah.
Consider supporting specification of environment variables in test pods in scorecard config YAML.
Yeah. So this is definitely a feature request. And I think we did discuss this in a triage meeting or somewhere public. And this is definitely something that we want to do. I don't think going to get done for 1.1. Nobody's assigned to it. And so I recommend putting it into backlog and putting in a priority important medium term on it.
Important what?
Important. Is there important medium term or is it just long term?
Looks like we have long term and soon.
Long term then, probably.
And just as a reminder from the process that if this feature is important to somebody, please comment on it, bring it back to our attention. The squeaky wheels have a tendency to get prioritized sooner. So if you need it in an upcoming release, just keep on us about it.
Yeah. And I would even consider putting Help Wanted and Good First Issue on there because it's not perfectly straightforward, but it is like something that's a fairly fun task to accomplish. And it will help you learn about the scorecard for sure. Okay.
Health check, liveness and readiness probe for operator.
Okay, so if I remember right, this one we have a liveness probe for Ansible operators, but um, we don't have a readiness probe because the readiness probe sort of conflicts with leader election. So I'm not. I'll have to check back on this one. Can you assign it to me and add it to the backlog, and I will bring it up at the next triage meeting if we need to get it done.
Sorry, who is me?
Austin.
As McAdoo?
Just MacDo, yeah.
Put in the backlog, priority long term. Isn't there like a label we can put on this that'll make it come up in the query for the triage meeting?
If we do important soon, it'll show up in the next triage meeting.
I thought there
Are we
was like a
talking triage or are we talking grooming?
Or yeah, grooming.
Yeah, important soon it'll show up in next grooming. Or it'll show up in this grooming after we yeah, but we've already looked at it, so we know. So yeah, if you want this to pop up in the next grooming, put important soon on it.
No, that's not what I want to do at all. Okay. CRDs are going away.
Right. So this has actually been resolved in controller tools, I believe. And I think at the bottom there was a linked, yeah. There we
So
go.
have we bumped our dependency on it already, or does that still need to happen?
So that needs to happen in KubeBuilder, and then we need to bump the KubeBuilder dependency here. So that is not going to happen in this release, but it will, and it should happen in 1.2. And if I'm not assigned, okay, I'm assigned. And then you can remove the triage needs information from this.
Okay. Operator SDK generate CSV overriding ALM examples? Does that mean OLM?
No, it's like a legacy legacy annotation. And well, it's not really legacy. It's just like the name is legacy. It still is something that's used commonly. So basically what's happening is because the CSV generator, more generally the bundle and package manifest generators, can't understand or can't know what CR types are unless they have a matching CRD. And in the CSV, there's some example CRs that you can add to the annotations. So this request is so that the CSV author can add like random CRs to their CSV automatically without having them match a CRD that's specified in the CSV. Right now, that's not really possible because if we just start adding a bunch of unrecognized types to the annotations, then we could add all sorts of like random Kubernetes types, and that's not a good idea. So I don't think that this is something I even want to work on right now because it's not really a problem for most people. You should just be adding your like extra CRs after the generation is completed. So I would throw this into the backlog and unassign me.
Eric, would you mind adding a comment that's saying like, we're not planning to work on this right now, but if this is important to you, please highlight it to us.
Yeah, I'll do that. Thanks.
Implement run bundle sub command to improve OLM integration. This is something I know that's currently under active work.
It is. I think there's one last PR that has the E2E and enables the actual command.
Are we trying to get this done before we cut 1.1 then?
Yes.
So we're just going to leave this here. And oh, the pull request was closed?
Oh, maybe it's a different PR. I'll update that ticket with the
Yeah, that's
PR.
updated to a different PR.
Okay, I'll update the ticket.
Should be.
Okay. I'll try and take a look at the PR. Once you update the link, I'll try and take a look at that today and review it. Assuming it's ready to be reviewed. Add resource limits to Ansible operator scaffolding. Austin?
Yeah, I don't think this would be, it might be a fair amount of investigation to find out what those numbers actually are. I don't feel strongly about, I don't think we should block 1.1 on it, so I think let's go ahead and put 1.2.
Was this related to security?
No, there were no resources pre 1.0, or actually I think this was 0.19, but we added some resource limits and they didn't work. The default resource limits did not work for Ansible. They were too low, so we just needed to bump them. But what's a reasonable value? I'm not sure. It worked. These resource limits worked for me locally, so.
Is it, so do we do this for any other operator types?
Yeah,
For
Helm
Ansible, you
does
said
it.
we do.
Ansible we don't. Helm we do.
Ansible we don't anymore. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if.
I mean, I might even be. I would say let's just go ahead and add this to the backlog, and if it becomes important, we can add it in.
Yeah, I agree.
And
And
get rid of the priority important soon label then.
yes. And Austin, if there isn't any discussion of this on here, can you just add a quick note saying this needs like the optimal like default limits need investigation before this is actually added?
Sure.
Thanks. Or something along those lines.
The run bundle ticket was updated.
Thanks.
Yeah, needs discussion would be fine.
Migrate all Ansible tests in shell to Go format. This is port the end-to-end tests that are currently in shell and bash scripts, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is done.
Well, nobody was tracking it in this issue. I also remember Camilla was writing PRs about this.
Yeah. I say we leave this in and have her update it next week. I could probably look into this and make sure that it's mostly done. This also isn't like anything related to the SDK binary or anything user facing, so it's not like it. If it doesn't go into like, if it doesn't get done by 1.1, it's not a huge deal.
I mean, you want me to just put it in 1.2 then?
I would think 1.2. Like even if
Yeah.
we do get it in 1.1, it won't mess up the change log or anything.
Yeah.
But I think we should reserve the milestone for stuff that we really want to block on.
Yeah.
Port the tests and test Ansible for the new layout.
Okay. So this is
one. This
completed
work's
by
already been done.
some
We just need to get it merged. So I think let's go ahead and leave 1.1 on it. That PR has been open a long time.
Okay.
But if you would mind, just assign me to it if I'm not already. Yeah.
Check and document the steps required to use the leader.become and be able to run locally.
I don't know what this is about. I'm pretty sure leader election is documented, or we haven't actually added leader for life to operator lib. I forget what the outcome of that was. I don't know if anybody else remembers, but
Leader for life that we used to have in the SDK is in operator lib.
okay. I'm pretty sure that's documented well.
Does it even make sense to run leader election when you're going local?
I mean, what does local mean? Does local mean literally local or just outside the cluster?
Yeah, you're running one instance of the operator, so like, no.
So in theory, it'd be a singleton and would always be leader.
Yeah, like
Can we
I
just
don't think
backlog and if it's important to somebody, we can prioritize it?
yeah. That's what we should do.
Go test should cover the features with API scaffolding using version 1 version.
Right. So this depends on KubeBuilder getting native support for V1 CRDs, and that does not exist yet. So yeah, there's nothing we can do about this right now. As soon as we bump
Something we want to
KubeBuilder,
keep track of and put it in 1.2.
well, this is testing again, so I wouldn't like once we bump to a KubeBuilder version that has support for V1 CRDs, then we get this automatically. So I would say this isn't even really an issue. I prefer to close it, but we can put it in the backlog. Like I can close this out. I'll just comment and say what I just said. So can you assign this to me?
I don't quite understand. Isn't this issue saying once we bump our dependency, we need to write tests that test the functionality of Operator SDK that exercise that functionality?
Yeah, and that, well, I guess so. And that's being done by default because by default V1 CRDs will be tested. So we don't actually need to change anything because we're testing with defaults right now.
Oh, okay. So you just want me to close it?
No, I can handle it. I'll follow up with a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, assign it to me if you could.
Eric, be sure to ping Camilla since she's probably going to have a bunch of stuff. I wouldn't want her to miss that.
Okay. Yeah, backlog. Or yeah, that's fine.
Run package manifest throws nasty error for running the wrong directory.
Wondering if this still happens.
So basically, it's not saying this error could be a lot less verbose because it's just saying these are all the files that I expect to be here and they're not here. When it should say I can't find the correct directory, and I think it's a pretty easy fix. Jesus, you want to take this one on?
Sure.
Do you want it to block 1.1?
I wouldn't say it should block it, no.
So just for clarification, I don't know, this discussion was had with a small number of us, but in general, I think moving forward, the model we want to go with is nothing actually blocks releases. We want to try and set a release cadence of every few weeks and cutting a release regardless of what is or is not done. And the things that aren't done just get moved into the next milestone.
Agreed.
So we're trying to play catch up a little bit because, you know, we're just starting this process, but moving forward, I think that's what we want to shoot for.
Yeah, +1. I've been the most vocal about that, and so I should clarify. I just think we should make 1.1 as little as possible right now so that we can get that out the door so we can start this process.
Okay. Is it possible to use the interactive mode just once?
This is definitely not in 1.0. This is like a request for an alternative type of CLI interaction as opposed to the one that we have right now, which wasn't really decided to be better or worse than what we have and might actually be worse, but we're not sure. So it's ambiguous. I haven't seen much activity outside of Joe commenting on this and us discussing it internally. So let's move this into the backlog. I don't think this is a good first issue in Help Wanted because there's been no definitive decision about what we want to do with it. So I would just say, yeah, it needs discussion. And then
when is an appropriate meeting to discuss the merits? Is that this meeting or a separate meeting?
I think this meeting,
Yeah.
if you want it now or soon,
Yeah,
bug
definitely.
triage is fine if it's just like longer term.
Yeah, like if you wanted this in this particular release, you would put it on the agenda. And I actually bumbled that. I should have
Forgot about the
added-
agenda.
Yeah, I should have. We can go through it after this, but I forgot to add like a section for this particular meeting. So basically, what you do is add this to that agenda for this meeting. We talked about it.
Can you go type in the thing for this meeting in the agenda?
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious. I think in my opinion, I would say we close this. That's something we're not going to do. But I guess without Camilla here, it's probably not fair to close it without her being able to talk about why she thinks this has merit. So I would say, yeah, this is fine. We should probably talk about it again when Camilla's back.
If you want to just remove the milestone, it'll just come up on the next triage.
Yeah, let's do
You're
that.
saying if I just get rid of all milestones?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Eric, could you drop a comment saying like, we think we ought to close this just so that we remember where we left off on Monday?
Sure.
Oh, hey, here's something. Make files shouldn't have to be modified to get the tests to run.
Oh yeah, that was during 1.0 testing. When you run the build, it tries to run the test, and the test by default didn't work because I guess there was mtest and some other things. And in the documentation, it was listed almost like if you're doing tests, do this code. And when you're reading through it, you kind of like, oh, I'm not doing a test right now. I just want it to build.
Then it blows up and you have to copy that stuff from the docs into it. And
So
It's super
So,
annoying.
it's either change the doc so that it's like always put this in there, 2, find a way to put it in there for them, or 3, don't make the build depend on that. So any one of those I think is
I like
acceptable.
option 2. And I think we should put this in 1.1. Because
I feel like
literally every single user who scaffolds and inits a new project, by default, it's broken, like straight up. And unless you go read the docs and figure out that you have to go and change your make file, which doesn't make sense to ask people to do, really, it's going to not work. So in my opinion, I would say let's go and as part of our edits that we're already doing to the makefile, let's make this edit as well.
I concur. I think whatever make file gets generated at the very beginning should work.
I can add a comment about what we just discussed to this issue.
Do we have a target date for the 1.1 release, or is it just whenever we work off all these issues?
Yeah, I think we were shooting for next week. So ideally what would happen is because the grooming meeting is every 3 weeks and we release every 3 weeks, we release we release 3 weeks from the week before the grooming meeting, if I recall correctly. So 2 weeks after the grooming meeting. But because
So
or maybe it was the
grooming
week
meeting.
after the grooming meeting.
We have a
I
grooming
forget what
meeting
we
and then-
discussed.
Okay.
What's that?
I thought the release was supposed to happen before the grooming meeting, but
That's
Well, either
what
way.
we'll move to.
So it's going to be do a release, have a grooming meeting for the next release, and then 2 week but the release happens the week before the grooming meeting. So then 2 weeks later after the grooming meeting, there's another release. Right? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
So does that mean 1.1 is 2 weeks from this week?
That should be 1.2, but perhaps, yeah, technically that should be 1.2 because we're planning this grooming meeting should be for the N+1 release.
Right, but we haven't released 1.1 yet.
Yeah, I guess 1.1 really, I mean, as far as I know, no one's beaten our door down to get 1.1 out the door. So I'd be fine just making this the 1.1 planning meeting. And we bump that release back a little bit until for 2 weeks, which I think will probably line up pretty well with getting the run bundle stuff in.
okay,
Sure.
so we're trying to cut 1.1 next week or the week after that?
Week after that. If we cut sooner, it's not a problem. In my
Well,
opinion.
I'd like to establish a regular cadence instead of having stuff like slip around and move forward or backward.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I'm more
if there's
saying
nothing-
like if we finish a milestone, I don't think there's a reason to just be sitting around doing nothing.
I think the main reason is just to establish the regularity, which might be worth it.
All right, that's okay with me too.
I think if we've already decided this, like we can move on, but I think one of the problems we might run into is we set up a milestone with all the things that we want to do and we get to the release date and those things aren't done. Do we go ahead and cut a release or do we delay?
What we discussed in the pre-planning meeting, which this is all up for discussion, but what we came to as a place to start is that in that situation, is it approvers that we decided would be able to suggest that we block a release, and any of those discussions would happen on the mailing list for a specific issue. And if we determine that that issue is not important enough to block the release, in that case, we just bump it to the next.
Got it.
But the idea was that that would be a uncommon occurrence, that if there are issues left over, and we probably expect that there will be, that they just get rolled to the next milestone.
I think the thing that we're not in the habit yet right now of is, like right now, we sometimes land like half-baked features on master, knowing that the rest of that feature will come in and we're not going to release until the rest of that's in. So I think if we want to start to make more regular releases, we have to be a lot better about making sure that master is always in a perfectly releasable state. And I don't think we do this often, but we do it often enough that it makes me a little bit nervous, just a little bit.
We did state as a precondition that master would have to be releasable. Of course, that comes in lots of forms, right? One is code that's there that's not really accessible or executable, but it's there is fine. Other things behind feature gates are fine, but adding a new CLI option that has nothing behind it might be a problem. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think part of it is the approver's understanding of the state of master to be able to even make that call, right? Like, I think we have a large project with a lot of approvers and a lot of moving parts, so it's not always clear to everyone if a release is able to be made on a current commit or not.
Yeah, I would suggest that there's a couple ways of managing that, but one is if you have multiple merges to a feature, that it's captured as an epic and that the epic is identified. There's some way of tracking it as a point. Or if it's no epic involved, you just have 3 tasks and you've done one of the tasks, you got to move to putting a label of a blocker or some signal that indicates that it's required or a rollback needs to happen or things like that. Not to change the subject too sharply, but it could be valuable in my opinion. And I just checked and I wasn't able to do this myself, but it would be valuable to put due dates on the milestones, which would be targeted dates, because it communicates a lot, I think. The questions that are coming up have come up a couple of times, and it's because there's limited people that know. And if someone could change like the 110 to 2 weeks out, and then the 120 to whatever the time frame would be, that would be really valuable, I think.
Yeah, let me do that.
And those are, as we talked about, those are target dates. The happy path is we will release, and master has to be in a good place. And Austin went through the case where we might block.
Okay, so with that revised understanding, is this something we want to leave in 1.1 or bounce to 1.2?
I think in my opinion, this is like a pretty bad user experience that we talked about as being like whether we should block 1.0 on this, and we decided against it. I don't think it would be good to go another release and not fix this.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well, then let's leave it on the 1.1. And do we have a release blocker milestone or a release blocker label yet? If not, we can go ahead and create one.
No, that's something that we had discussed doing and have a procedure for it, but we didn't actually create the label.
So the official procedure, which I'm not sure we've communicated yet, is at least one approver says that it should be a blocker and no approvers say that it shouldn't be a blocker. And if there's a lazy consensus, we just do it. If there's not a lazy consensus, it's a straight vote of approvers.
Sure.
Okay, moving on.
Can we, if this is going to block a release, can we assign someone to pick this up with some priority? Camilla's out this week, I think. So is anyone here interested in picking this up and have some cycles to do it?
I can take a look at it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. And I think Eric can probably give you some pointers if you're looking for where to make these changes.
Yeah.
Add scorecard cuddle.
I was just looking at that. It looks like there's 3 related, not that they have to be coupled together, but there's Go, Helm, and Ansible, all three wanting cuddle test scaffolding. I would be happy to help with that. There's not any detail there, and it's hard to know when someone would be happy.
Yeah, so
these
I
should
filed
be
this.
better filled
Yeah,
out.
I did a bad job of filing this because I didn't really know what was needed here. But this came out of some of the 1.0 testing, and one of the things that we were testing was running a scorecard cuddle test, which it required a bit of manual labor to get it to work, and it should just be able to run out of the box. So if somebody's interested in picking this up, I think you probably would want to talk with Jeff, who would be able to give a little bit more detail. But it was Jeff that suggested that I open these issues.
Okay. Well, I talk with Jeff at least multiple times a week, so I'll follow up. If you want to send me to the Golang one, I'm happy to tackle it.
I think the idea was that as part of the create API command, we could scaffold like a boilerplate cuddle test that basically did nothing for that API.
I can write lots of code that does nothing. I'm really good at that. So I'm the right person.
Yeah, and I guess the trick with this is I don't think, well, I guess we do enable scorecard by default for anything that you've run make bundle on in an SDK project. I wonder if we do want to enable cuddle by default as well, because the tests don't do anything, whereas the scorecard ones actually do.
Well, even though it does nothing, it should still pass.
Yeah.
I think the idea is like we would basically want to have it create a CR and then check that the CR exists or something like that, which would actually verify, like if the operator had validating webhooks or something like that, it would test that part at least. So like just a very simple, like create the CR and test that it exists as a cuddle test for each API we had, I think would be something we could enable by default and would be like something that a user could then go in and add extra assertions and stuff to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm thinking out loud. I mean, this will require a little bit of discussion I can follow up on. It doesn't answer really the milestone question, though. I don't know if this should be in 1.1 or past that. I have cycles to get it in to the timeframe we talked about, as long as whatever discussion I have with Jeff.
So why don't we keep this in 1.1 and move the other two into 1.2?
That sounds great to me.
So do we think that it'll be a documentation problem to say that this is supported for Go, but not for Helm or Ansible? I don't know exactly how docs are organized.
Well, if you implement this for Go, it's going to be pretty straightforward, I think, to implement it for both Helm and Ansible. The reason I want to move them to 1.2 is that there might be some stuff in between that we need to think about that we aren't thinking about right now. And I would say for documentation, just throw like this is only supported for Go right now, Ansible Helm coming soon. Done.
Fair enough.
By coming soon, we're talking 3 weeks as well. So
yeah.
Can't tell if you think 3 weeks, if you're saying that, is it 3 weeks is a long time or a short time?
Yeah, I meant it a short, but the power of having a feature slip model is the cadence and having trust in the community that you are maintaining that cadence. So when I think people grow accustomed to the fact that every 3 weeks there's an update, and as long as you tell them what milestone it's on, they'll be happy. It's been my experience.
Okay. Hey, I would like to be able to rerun my own Travis jobs. So I believe the solution we decided with going with was kind of a major infrastructure change. We were going to move stuff over to Prow. I believe that we have that testing up and running, not on the Operator SDK repo, but on Operator lib. And I was playing around with that, and it seems to work. So theoretically, we'd be fine with moving over the Operator SDK to that. How do we feel about this now? Do we want to try and make that move, or?
I think for Operator SDK, it's going to entail more work because the Operator lib just basically needs to run go test and go build and go vet, like some static stuff under the hood, and there's no EDE tests that run there. Whereas with Operator SDK, we have to spin up clusters and build stuff and run stuff. And that's not as straightforward, I don't think, with Prow as it is with Travis, because in Prow, you're basically given a container to run your tests in, and there's no privileged Docker socket access in those containers, so you can't do like kind-related things and stuff like that. So it's a larger piece of work to migrate our stuff over to Prow, especially if we want to not. So right now, there's background here. The Prow instance that Operator lib uses is provided to the Operator framework by Red Hat, and Red Hat will allow us to spin up OpenShift clusters to run EDE tests on, but those things take a long time to spin up. They flake fairly often, and they're just not super great unless you explicitly need an OpenShift cluster, and I don't think for our upstream project we do. So I think it's possible for us to write like a separate setup that spins up a Minikube or a Kind or something like that, but I don't think that exists anywhere in other projects that use the OpenShift Prow. So that's like a piece of work that has to happen before we can migrate. But I do think it would be worthwhile. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, or at least something to investigate. Another option would be GitHub Actions and looking to see if there's a similar way that we can have these kind of Git robot retest things supported for members in the owner's file or PR submitters. So anyway, it's not super straightforward, and I think we need to spend some time thinking about what we really want and whether we really want to move to Prow or whether there's alternatives.
Yeah. And
Joe, could you add a comment on this? And I'd like to remove the help wanted and move the milestone to backlog, I think.
Yeah. One thing I will say about this is now that we have a way for people to become reviewers and approvers, I think on a per person basis, we can add GitHub permissions such that you can go into Travis and re-kick your jobs, but you don't have like admin privileges. So we might just be able to cobble a workaround together until we get Prow and tied up and running, doing that.
Well, and as a super workaround, you can just close and reopen the PR.
Well, no, but
I don't like that one.
That doesn't work is if I'm trying to review somebody's PR and I think their test is flaking, I physically cannot make their test rerun.
Eric, with the scenario you were talking about, would that give anybody that we gave that access to, would that mean they would have the ability to stop other tests that are happening in Travis, or would they only have access to their own tests?
Probably stop other people's tests.
Yeah.
But I think if they become a reviewer, then
reviewer is fine.
Only reviewers and approvers, only people who are in the owner's file can have that privilege. Because we're adding these people in PRs, then we know like this is documented that this person is being added. So once that PR has been created, then we can go into the GitHub permissions and update their perms, and we can revoke them if they're being not nice.
Would it be appropriate to file an issue for that?
For
the workaround you just said.
Yeah.
Oh, I can just comment on this and say, what I just said. And yeah, why don't you assign this to me? Let's keep this in 1.1.
I was going to say, I feel like if we're putting it in the backlog, it's not very priority important soon.
Yeah. If I find out that what I just said isn't possible, then I'll remove, or I'll put priority long term and put it into, or I'll just put it into like the next release. I'll do something with it to make sure that's still tracked at least.
Okay. Scorecard and verbose. Oh man, we are running out of time. Scorecard and verbose logging.
Yeah, this is, I think it's just a regression that we used to have verbose scorecard logging and now we don't. But I don't think this is a high priority. My personal opinion, though.
I agree.
Do you want to move it to 1.2 or put it in the backlog?
I'd probably say backlog.
Yeah, backlog's fine.
I think if no one makes more noise about this,
Agreed.
I won't do it.
Errors on bundle validate when specifying non-default service account name and controller manager deployments. That's a mouthful.
Basically what is happening is I think this person was seeing some validation errors because certain files were being added to a bundle when they should have not been, and instead should have been incorporated into the CSV. This might have been fixed by that PR that's linked here.
Why does it say one of two tasks?
It's just because in our pull request template, we have two checkboxes, and sometimes you don't need to check one of them because it's not like a docs change or user-facing issue, so you don't need to add a changelog fragment. Anyway, that's done. I would say leave this in. Ish, have you gotten a chance to investigate this? I see that you're assigned here. I don't know if you're on the call.
Joe?
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute Zoom. Yeah, I've taken a look at this a little bit, but I actually haven't recreated the bug, so it's just kind of been on the back burner as I've taken care of like just my proposal and other bug fixes I've been working on. But if it's a priority, I can get back to it and just try to crank it out.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just trying to reproduce what this person said their scenario is.
Yeah, totally. I can hop
obviously
onto it.
Okay, yeah.
And if
just
it turns
close
out to have been fixed, maybe do a pull request that adds a changelog entry only.
Okay, that's fair.
Operator SDK and it help text is not general enough.
Well, this is kind of poorly written. If you type operator SDK init, it'll give you the Go help text, which it doesn't really make sense if you're going to use Ansible or Helm. But I think this is sort of baked into the way that it's all working right now, and I don't think we're going to be able to fix this. So I suggest maybe we take this to the backlog.
I think this is fixable. I think we probably just made some, when we were writing the initial plugin implementation, I think we had one idea of how it was going to work. And then when we moved to the implementation that exists now, this particular piece of the Kubeler plugin CLI that we're importing was not updated along with it, I think is the problem. Eric, I can't remember, I think we were talking about this months ago about how we could fix this, but I think we could. It would be a change on the KubeBuilder side that we would need to make upstream and then import into the SDK.
Yeah, pretty much.
You want to try and fix this now or now +1?
Honestly, I don't even know if it'll be now +1.
So at some point in the future.
Yeah.
I think we should put in priority long-term on this because like we do need to do this.
Yeah, that seems good.
Yeah, I'm going to remove myself as the assignee as well.
Cannot create directory dot Ansible, permission denied. Is this not?
This sounds like the cryo home directory Etsy password problem that we see a lot. Oh, this is a really old one. Is this one?
Yeah.
Well, if that's the
I think
case,
this has
Has
been-
this been solved? I wonder if this has been solved.
I mean,
I know it's not closed, but
Although let's
Let's
put it
look
on the
at
backlog, assign me, and I'll take a look.
Yeah, I think this is one that we'll only get on old versions of OpenShift. I think Kubernetes works fine, and newer versions of OpenShift also work fine.
All right, so take off priority importance soon. And I mean, this is a bug. So probably remove triage support and look, yeah, and add bug.
it sounds like a
Fabian,
bug.
is there a
that we're
chance
not
that it's already been
attempting to
fixed?
fix. So it's been,
Yeah,
it's a
so
bug.
it was
go
a
ahead.
bug in cryo, not us, and it has been fixed. So I believe with new versions of the Ansible operator base image, or rather all versions of the Ansible operator base image should work fine on even new like dot releases of OpenShift. So like they saw it on 4.3.1, not in 4.3.8. And this isn't a problem at all for Kubernetes as far as I know.
So what you're saying is we
I
have to
think-
do nothing.
Yeah. I think for the people who are still seeing this because they're on old clusters and things like that, they probably have to update their Docker file with a workaround. There's like a couple out there of varying like cleanliness, but I don't really think this is something that we need to fix in the base image.
Okay, can either you or Austin comment basically that there's workarounds that exist for this, but this is not an SDK issue, and close it out?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
unrecognized import path vbom.ml/util. Some kind of bug on some old version of Go or something.
Yeah, it looks like there's two ways to fix this. One, you pin path with a replace, as Joe suggested, or two, you update dependencies to Kubernetes 120. Eventually, we're going to do the Kubernetes 120 bump, but for now, I think pinning this is fine.
This is a problem with building Operator SDK itself. So this would be a very easy fix for us to go and just add that replace line, which is why I put the good first issue
Yeah,
label on it.
Okay, so can we just leave this in and somebody will get around to it?
If
Yeah,
it's
does
going to stay
anybody
the
on
1.1 milestone, yeah, we should assign it.
anybody on here want to take this on? I can do it if nobody else wants to. It's pretty straightforward. Sure.
Okay, keeping in mind we have 2 minutes left. This is the new 1.1 milestone. There's a whole bunch of priority important soon stuff that theoretically we should go through, but we don't have time for that. So does anybody else have an issue that they think really should be part of 1.1? I do. So I've been working on stuff adding unit tests because there's a whole bunch of the code base that currently isn't unit tested, and that makes me freak out. This has been in the backlog, but I've been kind of working on it on the side, but I think I have an open PR that's been open for like a couple weeks now, and I haven't really wanted to bug people because it's, in the backlog and we've been trying to cut a release. But this is something I'd, like to actively work on, so I would like to put it in the milestone.
Do you think that this should block a release?
No, but then I thought things in the milestone aren't release blockers anymore. So, but if it's something somebody's actively working on, then it should be in the milestone. If my
I think I would say, let's put this in the milestone we expect, realistically expect to deliver it in. So if we think it'll get all done by 1.1, let's put it there. But if we think that's unrealistic, then, Jonathan, whatever you think, since you're the one working on this, it sounds like.
I mean, I think, because this is just add unit test for this one part. Yes, I think I could realistically finish this if we're cutting it in 2 weeks.
All right, then assign yourself and put it into the 1.1 milestone. I only asked if this should block release because, not because I think that milestones shouldn't or should only contain release blockers. It's more like this isn't user facing, this is for testing. So yeah, I wanted your opinion on that, but I think it's fine to try and get this in for 1.1 if you think you can get the work in.
Sure.
And I think it's easier for Jonathan to ping us now. Hey, can I get reviews on this? It's on the list. I'm trying to get it done. So.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I'd like to support putting it in the current milestone as well. I like the things that are currently being worked on in that time frame. That way, when someone new comes to the project, they can go into the current working milestone and see where they might be able to jump in. Even if this is if it's so big that it's gonna move into milestone 1.2, you at least see the history, you see how it moved, you understand what's current. So anyway. I know we're out of time. I want to throw out there, I just got notice about the hackathon that DigitalOcean does. I have a couple of other projects I manage and maintain and put labels on, and I create specific labels for people doing hackathon to participate and help in. I was wondering what people's interest would be if I did something similar within the Operator SDK world. I would probably need help to triage, which I'll do in separate meetings, not here right now. But if there's no interest, then I won't do it at all. So I thought I'd throw that out there.
I'm sorry, I don't think I quite understand. Do you mean come up with a system of labels?
Yeah, I have to go back and see. I'm a little bit late on it because tomorrow's October, but usually we've created a place where people can filter on a label for hackathon, which might be easy, quick wins, simple first solutions. And maybe those labels are enough, but then usually blog and tweet and make sure people know that they're available if they're looking for a place to contribute. It's just my way of supporting the hackathon stuff as much as possible and also attracting people to the project.
Sorry, I don't know what hackathon you're talking about.
Well, that's even better. But yeah, if I wouldn't have offered it up had I thought that we created a conversation. But there it is. Send it into the chat. Perhaps I'll follow up on the Slack channel. I don't want to tie everybody up.
I'd really like to get the SDK involved in some hackathons. I do think that it might be in our best interest to improve our contributor documentation before we ask someone to dive in.
Do you mean trying to get people to work on Operator SDK as part of a hackathon, or trying to get people to build operators using Operator SDK as part of a hackathon?
The first, although it could be both, I guess. It's just a matter about participating in the open source space is all. I agree, Austin, that makes sense what you're saying. But yeah, if it's not worthwhile, then that's easier.
I mean, I say let's go for it, and it at the very least will show us where we need to improve.
Do we have an actionable item out of that conversation?
I was just trying to get a sense of feeling people had. If there's a lazy consensus, I'll follow up on the Slack, and yeah, I'll follow up.
I mean, sure, yeah. If you could type something up and just send it out and like get a conversation going on Slack, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, my goal would be by this weekend. So yeah, I'll follow up.
Please do. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? I guess we're really over time at this point, so we should just cap it. I will say I think we should go through the format of these meetings next time before anything else happens, and should probably do that for the one following that, just to make sure that everybody is aware of how we're going through all these issues. Because I think it was a little bit unclear at the beginning of this, and we were also unsure ourselves. So let's try and solidify that.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks for coming. See you all next week.
Yeah, next week, Monday.